Hey guys, welcome to Pajama Let's Play. I'm Michelle, host of Pajama Let's Play, where we talk all things Kingdom Hearts. Today, I'm going to do a character analysis of Luxu and why it's absolutely okay to stay out of other people's affairs sometimes. But before we get into all that, make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. You can also follow me on Twitch, check out my Patreon. All of those links are in the description box down below. I will be covering spoilers, as is the nature with Luxu, so feel free to get caught up on the story first and then come back to this. For everyone else, today I'm going to talk about Luxu as a character. It's not a theory as much as aspects of the character I deeply relate to. Let's start at the beginning. We first meet Luxu here as Xigbar.
What's the big idea?
Oopsie daisy.
Move!
Now, do you think that's polite? Shutting me down like that?
I said get out of the way!
As if. You can talk all you want, but that won't change a thing.
Then we are gonna make you move.
See, that would work if I were just any old dude. Except I'm not. I'm with the organization. Nothing any old about me.
Huh, tough talk for someone who stood on the sidelines while his nobody flunkies did the fighting.
Oh dear. I think you got the wrong impression.
You gonna cry?
As if. Why don't I remind you how tough the crowd you're dealing with really is?
Remind me?
That's right! You used to give me that same exact look.
I guess you think you can psych me out by saying really random stuff.
Gee, I just don't know. Be a good boy now.
Xigbar wasn't in Chain of Memories, so his introduction to the audience was in Kingdom Hearts 2. 358 over 2 days was released later, and I'm going chronologically for the audience. Here, Sora points out that Xigbar sat out of the fighting, which is absolutely true. As the audience, we're led to believe that Xigbar is either too weak to fight, or strong enough to be a bigger boss later on. Turns out it's a little bit of both. First, let's address the why of it all. We know his role in back cover was to take the box, the Master's Keyblade, and just observe events. He was instructed to take as many vessels as is required to make it to the end, whenever that happens. But it's more than that. It's not like the whole Kingdom Hearts universe is experiencing sunshine and rainbows. Luxu is meant to watch his friends suffer and potentially die for this mission. Let's get a quick reminder of what's truly at stake for Luxu. So all of this is to serve a plan in which darkness can be defeated. Notice the distinct lack of words like extinguish and killed, because neither can be done. The entity all the characters in Backroad and most of the rest of the series sees as the ultimate bad guy is what's truly at stake here. The Master of Masters has the Book of Prophecies to consult, but specifically avoided giving one to Luxu. Yes, this prevents paradoxes like the Master of Masters said, but it also means Luxu has to rely on blind faith for his mission. He has to trust the Master of Masters has a big plan with every step planned out, because he's given nothing but a box and a Keyblade he doesn't understand. Put yourself in Luxu's shoes for a moment. You are told by the authority figure you trust completely that all of your friends are going to die, the world will fall to darkness, and if you want to see any of those things again, you must follow every step laid out for you by this one person. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be willing to risk a single misstep. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person and leads to a lot of anxiety, especially the type that paralyzes. One mistake, one alteration, and he may never see any of his friends again, and all the surviving and vessel hopping was for nothing. Imagine how overwhelming that must feel. So he processes that, and the future no one else knows is coming, when he's confronted by Ava here. He tried to tell her what his role was, and he started filling in the blanks for her. But she was so stuck on the thought of the Master of Masters being less than lawful good and couldn't hear what Luxu was saying. But he said it all right there. He has to watch everyone else fight a war and perish and cannot become involved because he must survive. Again, that's a mighty heavy burden to put on someone, especially someone who's no more than 17 years old. It's hard enough to persist through trauma, but to know the trauma's coming and you're not allowed to do anything that might alter its course, that's unimaginable. And the worst of it all, she didn't even believe him. Look at her response to all of this information. Not only did she not believe him and accuse him of being the traitor, she initiated the Keyblade War over it. And what did Luxu learn from all this? Not to tell anyone, even his close friends, the truth about him and his mission. If Ava responded in the way she did, how is he to believe it would go any better with anyone else? He has now experienced the level of trauma required to keep all of this a secret from here on out. He can't afford to ruin the plan and risk not saving his friends, so silence is his only option at this point. Well, he does as he's instructed and does indeed survive. He seems to stay in the background until he meets Xehanort. We get this part of the story from the secret reports in Kingdom Hearts 3, specifically number 13. He decides to play the role of the fool to keep a closer eye on the Keyblade he has successfully passed down, and the foreseen Keyblade War approaches. Xehanort was his signal to get involved for the first time since leaving Daybreak Town in the first place. Well, that brings us to Birth by Sleep, where he finds a newly formed Terranort, as seen here.
Right this way.
Young man, what ails you? Can you speak? Tell me your name.
Xehanort.
Xehanort. Quickly, get him to the castle.
You can count on me. Dylan, get those for me. Hey, Mr. Master. Oh, come on, you don't even know your pal? Please tell me the amnesia was just a sick joke. Boy, this is some cliche. Hey, you're not Terra. Just gotta check. As if. Well, don't sweat it. I got your back.
It shouldn't be a surprise that Luxu found Xehanort and stayed so close to him, especially for exactly those circumstances. Had Luxu gotten more involved and died fighting Aqua, he would not have been able to lead Ansem the Wise to Terranort and aid in his recovery, thus leading to the foreseen Keyblade War. Thankfully for the Master of Masters, Luxu stayed out of the drama as much as possible, and minimized his risk, losing only an eye instead of his life. He continues to follow Xehanort on his path, becomes a nobody, and is tasked with finding recruits for the organization, where he brings in Marluxia and I assume Larxene at the same time. Possibly Luxord and Demix depending on how the next couple of games play out. It's easy to see why he would choose two wielders from Union Cross, and even shows that he's still a good guy being forced to play the role of a villain. He already knew about the events of Union Cross, and of everyone he could have recruited, he chose these dandelions he had been watching. He even cares for Subject X and seems to help her escape. It's generally accepted that she's either Skuld or Ava, so another person Luxu would care for and want to assist. Especially if that person were the true dandelion, which would imply to me that it's his fault she ended up as a lab rat in the first place. Or, at least, he would perceive it that way. Which adds a very heavy layer of guilt onto his survivor's guilt he must already be feeling after the events of Union Cross. I'm not even convinced the true dandelion was a part of the Master of Masters plan rather than an assumption by Luxu, which would then imply even further trauma associated with getting involved and diverging from the original plan. I honestly believe he was left to interpret the Master's meeting, made a judgment call, and got his friend Ava or Skuld put into the position of being experimented upon. If that's the case, and if I were in that position, I know I would not have been willing to jump to any more conclusions and would have preferred to stay inactive and silent. Now Luxu is a nobody, no heart or emotion to keep him from diverging from the plan once again. And he gets more active and actually participates in the battles with Sora and company. During this time, he also isn't presented with any redemption opportunities. He must just go with the flow and continue on this path he paved for himself. He also has to be reminded of his past constantly through Roxas, Xion, and Sora. Roxas is identical to Ventus, Xion presents to him as Ventus, and Sora acts and speaks like Ventus. No matter what he does, he has that physical reminder of his past and all his friends he couldn't save. And honestly, I think that serves him well. It keeps him focused on his mission and prevents him from following Xehanort too far into darkness. Over time, we as the audience get to see exactly that happening. For example, this little bit from Dream Drop Distance.
No, that wasn't stuff. It was a dream. The falling asleep part was definitely our bad. But we can't put stuff in your head. Hey, I got an idea. Ask your heart. See if it's got a clue.
Well, my heart was aching. That's why I kept going.
Oh, thank you, Sora's heart, for pushing him right into our clutches. Aren't hearts great? Steer us wrong every time.
He still has to play the role of the villain to stay close to Xehanort and the Keyblade, but he was definitely helping Sora work through the confusion there. And that's not the only example. If you go back through Kingdom Hearts 2 and Dream Drop Distance, he actually helps Sora every chance he gets. He can't help directly or too much because it will give away his plan and derail the future, and he's already seen how that plays out. He even makes that comment about heart steering us wrong. If that's not a statement that reflects trauma, I don't know what is. Finally, the time has come and the foreseen Keyblade War gets started, and he reveals to the audience, for the first time since this is before we know Xigbar and Luxu were one and the same, why he followed Xehanort. It was all for the Keyblade, and he didn't say it to Sora, but also for his mission. He ends his story arc for the time being in the epilogue seen here.
These days they call me Xigbar, but hey, whatever suits you.
Is it really you?
Yeah, but some time ago I had to cast my old form away. Been through plenty more semblances since, but it's still me underneath it all.
And that's the crux of Luxu's story arc. He's changed and isn't recognizable anymore, but it's still him underneath it all. All of that trauma just to learn the Master of Masters was right the whole time. Their world was destroyed, the Keyblade War couldn't be avoided, all of his friends would perish, and the best thing he could have done was stay out of it and just watch until the time came to act. Had he gotten more involved, the consequences could have been dire enough that none of the apprentices, nor the Master himself, would have been able to make it to the future, which would have derailed everything. Luxu holds the memories for the other six and is absolutely vital to the long-term plan. Had he lost his heart and his body, more than he did as a nobody, None of the others could have traveled to the future. The Book of Prophecies would not have been written, and the Keyblade War cycle would never end, because no one would have survived long enough to form a real plan to end the cycle. As painful and guilt-inducing as it is, sometimes you have to put your own survival, goals, and needs before the drama and painful experiences of others, especially those whose goals seem less important than yours. In the grand scheme of things, Roxas and Shion's existence is inconsequential if darkness always triumphs and dominates the light. What's the point in aiding the research of Ansem the Wise and his apprentices when you know the world will end up being reset anyway? These characters don't know Luxu or what he's been through, and he doesn't owe them anything more than what he's doing. And that's a lesson we should all take to heart. We don't know what others are going through, nor do they know us and our struggles. No one is entitled to your time, energy, or efforts, and it's okay to tell your loved ones that you don't have the bandwidth for them in that moment. Anyone who can't accept your boundaries, as long as they're healthy, doesn't need to be part of your life and your future success. And Luxu embodies that attitude well. Just because you're staying out of a conflict that doesn't affect you, doesn't make you a heartless or a nobody. It makes you a human being who's aware that you can't be absolutely perfect 100% of the time, and that you really do need to put your own needs first. And that's absolutely okay. So what do you think? Is Luxu the villain we all originally saw him as? Is he being selfish by putting his own goals first? Tell me all about your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitch, and check out my Patreon, all in the description box down below. Until next time.